Well, here it is, how I got this way. Hey YouTube, Vertical Stacker here, and I just wanted to jump on here and make a video. It's going to be a little longer video than normal. I've had a few comments on some of my recent videos asking, how in the world can you afford to buy such large quantities of gold and silver at a time? And I have made a few videos recently where I've purchased quite a bit in gold and silver, bullion and coinage. So I just wanted to get on here and share a little bit of who I am and what I do and how I do it, and maybe most importantly, where I came from. Because I think if you understand where I came from, then a lot of the answers to other questions will just naturally come. So for those of you who aren't interested in personal histories, you can just go ahead and tune out. For those who have made comments on my videos that I'm showboating or arrogant or whatever, you have your opinions, and I can appreciate everyone's opinion, whether I agree with it or not. And that's the beauty of the relative anonymity of YouTube, is that we can say and do pretty much whatever we want. But my goal with this is not to be arrogant. It's not to showboat. I will, throughout this video, just be showcasing some of my gold stack here. I keep my stack in different locations. This is just one that was handy to me, and so I thought I would bring that by and show some of these pieces while I'm giving you the spiel about how I got this way. Some of you may know the author Pat McManus. He's an outdoor writer, humorist, recently passed away, but How I Got This Way is kind of one of the title of one of his books. And so I just wanted to review a little bit of my life with you so you can understand a little bit more about me. My childhood was pretty typical of an Idahoan's childhood, in that I lived in an area where there was not a lot of wealth. It was a lower middle class area, if that. I know we certainly didn't live lower middle class. Growing up, I would have a bowl of Cheerios in the morning, and I received free school lunches. I was one of those kids that had the different colored tickets, and I was somewhat embarrassed by having to have the tan ticket when everybody else had the green ticket. But, it was what it was, and our family did not have a lot of money. And so that's how I grew up. There was a stretch of time where I had to eat bologna 3 times a day. I would actually take it and fry it up in a pan and cut it into like little pizza triangles, and that would be my breakfast, and during the summer, lunch and dinner. So be it as it may, we were poor, and we were just dirt poor. I remember my mother and I and my sister going dumpster diving. One of the reasons why we did that, of course, was to support and supplement family income. Dad did his best, or what he thought was his best, with what he had to work with, but he had some distractions in his life, such as being a ham radio operator and things like that, that really kept him, I think, from being able to reach his full potential and certainly provide how he could have in the industry in which he worked. But that's another story for another day. So we were poor. We went dumpster diving. There were a lot of retail box stores around my neighborhood, and so we would dive into those dumpsters and pull stuff out, and then we would salvage what we could and sell it at yard sales, and that's how we would make our month-to-month ends meet. It was during this time that I was in 8th grade, and I found some old tennis rackets in a dumpster from a sporting goods store. I shouldn't say old, I guess they were called demos at the time. So I took those tennis rackets and I started to teach myself how to play tennis. I would watch Andre Agassi and Michael Chang and Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe videos, somewhat of a different generation. But what I would do is I would, on my old VHS tapes, I would tape their tennis matches, and then I would go a frame at a time and watch how they would hold the racket, how they would move their feet, and so forth. And by the end of my 8th grade year, I ended up winning the city tournament here in Boise, Idaho. So that was quite an accomplishment from a kid who found a tennis racket in a dumpster. And so my love for tennis began, and I played all through high school. I also played baseball, which was really my first love. I was a little leaguer, and then played Senior League, American Legion, and had a pretty good baseball run. My claim to fame is there was only one person that ever hit a home run off of me. I was a pitcher, and that person went on to play in the major leagues, so I didn't feel terrible about that. But the guy crushed the ball. If any of you are familiar with Weigel Field in Boise, it's the old Bora High School field. He crushed that thing dead center field, which was 400 and some odd feet. I'm pretty sure that thing was still going up as it went over the fence. But so I was an athlete, self-taught for the most part, and graduated high school, worked odd jobs. I cleaned carpets. I worked at the mall. I repaired windshield chips. I built computers. I worked in security. And then finally, when I was 25 years old, I landed my first, what I would call real job at Micron Technology here in Boise. And I worked as a janitor, of all things. But it was a job that provided decent income and benefits, which I had never had before. And I think when I say decent income, it was probably around $10 an hour, if I remember right, which seemed to be pretty good. And that was with some shift differentials. And this would have been, again, a number of years ago. But the shift differential pay was decent, vacation pay, and all of that. I tell you, though, it was a shift that I went to work at 7 o'clock at night, and I came home at 7 in the morning. And then I had to sleep for 6 or 8 hours, and then get up and have 1 or 2 hours of free time and do it all again. It was not conducive to a happy life or a good lifestyle at all. It was awful. I changed from the janitorial crew over to the carpet crew at Micron, hoping that I would get a better shift. Never really did get a better shift, and so I was definitely looking for other work, even though this was my first job where I'd actually had any type of real tangible benefits. While I was sitting at Costco one day in line, and a kid that I actually knew from high school came up to me and he says, "Hey, well, what are you doing with yourself nowadays?" And I told him where I was working. I told him that I wasn't, super excited about it, but it paid the bills. And so he says, "Well, hey, why don't you come over and interview with my uncle's law firm over in Boise? They're looking for a runner." And of course, the very first question I asked, well, how much does it pay? And he didn't know. And so I thought, well, what the heck, I'll go check it out. And I went and I interviewed with this law firm. And the position, in fact, was for a runner. And the pay was $6 an hour, which at the time was a significant income hit by about 40%. However, it was normal, 8 to 5, 8 to 6 type hours. And I knew I needed a change in my life. I had to do something different because I was not happy. I was not happy working 7 to 7 on a graveyard shift and just having no life at all. So I accepted the job. I quit Micron Technology. It was quite a risky move. and I literally started over at 25 years old, making $6 an hour. One of the things that my father taught me, and to his credit, was to never be late for work. No matter what the circumstances are, never be late. If you have to show up on time and tell them that you're sick as a dog and then go home, that's one thing. But to show up late or call in late, sick, whatever, was just an unacceptable thing. And it surprises me that my dad wasn't more successful given some of his teachings, but I took that very seriously. And so I went to work every day for 3 or 4 months, never late, did what was asked of me, proved myself. And within about the 4th month, my employer came to me and said, you know, I've been watching you and I've noticed that you're a very diligent worker. You are always here on time. You do what we ask you to do in a timely fashion. And I just think you have more potential than being a runner. So I wondered if you would be interested in this position. And he recommended that I would become a different position. I really can't say what it is because I don't want to give away the type of field it was that I worked in, but it was just a different position within the same firm, and it was a bump in pay. And he said, I'll pay you $8.50 an hour. And this was after 4 months on the job. So I said, well, you bet. You bet I'll take that position for another, $2.50 an hour. I will take it. Well, another 6 or 8 months went by, and he came to me again. And he said, hey, I've been watching you, and you are a hard worker. You're never late. You don't, call in sick. I appreciate the work that you've done. You obviously have some talent. And I'm thinking about moving you up to this position. Would you be interested in this? And he says, I will pay you $13 an hour. So this is now, probably about close to a year into it. And I said, well, absolutely. Who couldn't use $13 an hour as then about a 26-year-old young man. And I worked there for another, 6 or 7 months. And he comes to me for, I think it was the 4th time. And he said, well, hey, I've been watching you. You're a good worker. I appreciate what you've done for my firm here. And I have another position that's opening up. And I wonder if you would be interested, and I will pay you $15 an hour. So I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. I'm good for $15 an hour. And so he bumped me up to yet another position. Well, I stayed there for about another probably year and a half. And he approaches me and says, hey, I have this other position here within the firm. I'd be really interested to have you fill it, and I will pay you $18 an hour. And so now if you think historically, I started out at $6 an hour. Now he's offering a position at $18 an hour. Obviously, I think that was going to be a no-brainer, and it fit within my skill set. And I said, absolutely, I would love to help you out there and do that for you. So I continued to work there for about another year at that position. And finally, he comes to me, and this is, now I've been working there for, 3.5, 4 years, something like that. And he says to me, you are better than what you're doing. And I wasn't really sure where he was going with that or what he really even meant by that, but he says, I really can't pay you any more money. There's nothing more I can have you do here at the firm and pay you more money given the current market rates and the skill set that this position requires. But I tell you what, I've been thinking about you, and I'd like to do something for you because of how you've been such a good employee. And he says, why don't you go to law school? And I said, well, how, how would I go to law school? I'm almost 30 years old. I don't know that that's a good career move for me. And he interrupts me and he says, I'll pay for it. I said, what? He says, I'll pay for it. He says, not only that, but I'll pay you your salary the whole time you go to law school, so you won't have to work. And I tell you, I'm sure I broke down in some form, probably tried not to show it too much, but what a generous offer, and how grateful I am for the work ethic that I developed as a young man that helped me literally grow from the lowest on the totem pole as a runner in this law firm to the highest position in the law firm, and then him actually offering to pay my way through law school. And I took him up on that offer. And I said, you bet. If you're willing to pay my way through law school and you're going to pay my salary the whole time I'm there, and that was a concern of mine. I wondered how I would do it. But what a blessing that was in my life. So at roughly 30 years old, I went to law school. And it was about a 2.5-year stint. I went straight through. I did not want to mess around. You know, I had a life to get to and to continue. And so I finished my law school degree in 2.5 years. And one of the conditions of him paying my way through law school, by the way, was that I would come back and work for him for a period of 5 years. And I thought, well, that's not a bad gig. I mean, my gosh, pay my way through law school, pay me my salary, and all you want is for me to work for you for 5 years. And of course, he would continue to pay me a salary while I was working for him during that time. So I thought, man, that's a no-lose situation there. That's a win-win, win for him, win for me. You bet. I will be glad to work for you for 5 years. Well, about 4 months before I graduated from law school, I get a phone call. And it's my employer. And he says, you know, things have been kind of tight around here, and I just really can't afford you anymore. So I'm going to cut you loose from the contract. You do not need to come work for me, and I wish you well. And boom, that was it. I was on my own. Now, he continued to pay my salary. He did that through my law school career, but after that, I was not obligated to come work for him or his firm, which, you know, ended up being a huge blessing. Now, I want to be clear. I'm very grateful to him. I'm very grateful to his law firm. Personally, professionally, I'm very, very grateful for the doors that he opened up for me in my life. Without that opportunity, I don't know where I would be today. Maybe I'd be a manager at Sportsman Warehouse. Maybe I'd be working at Cabela's. Maybe I'd be an outfitter or a guide. I don't know. Maybe I'd still be cleaning carpets. But what a great blessing that was. And so I came out of law school and I started my own practice. And it was a rough first couple of years. I will tell you, the first year, I probably made about $6,000 or $7,000, and that was between, I don't know, well, it was about a 6-month time period because when I started. So things were pretty rough. You know, I was married, had kids. I thought, man, how are we going to make this work? So I continued to go at it, and I got a little lucky. I was sitting in a deposition one time, and it's a case that another attorney had actually handed off to me because he didn't want to deal with it anymore. And I know why, because it was a dog case, but this client of mine did very, very poorly in the deposition setting. And so poorly, in fact, that I thought, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? This case is a dog. And no wonder this other attorney, passed it off onto me. Now, I don't know what opposing counsel was thinking in this case. I'll never really know. The only thing I can think is that there must have been some sort of divine intervention. And that's where the luck component comes into my history and how I got this way. Because the day after this deposition, opposing counsel called me up and offered to settle the case for way more money than it was worth. Way more money than it was worth. And it was all I could do to contain myself and not start, jumping up and down saying, yeah, we'll take it. Because, of course, I had to get consent from my client. But that was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. And so with that, I was able to afford to do a little marketing and a little advertising. And from that point forward, I was able to build a successful practice to where I have it today. And I guess, there will be those who say, oh, I was privileged. Oh, that's not how it happens. You just got really lucky or whatever. But I firmly believe, folks, that how I got this way is because of the work ethic that was instilled in me by my parents at a very early age. And because I took that work ethic and I applied it in my life from day one at every one of my jobs. Now, some of my employers didn't appreciate it. They didn't appreciate the fact that I would be there on time every day, put in a full day's work, and so forth. And that's fine. There are going to be employers who do not appreciate you, and you are just a warm body filling a need. But I think and I believe that my story, how I got this way, is a fulfillment, literally, of the American dream. Because if I can do it, I'm really not that smart, folks. If I can do it, I really believe anybody can do it. Remember, I was eating bologna 3 times a day. I was dumpster diving to supplement our income to make ends meet. So I really believe that if you work hard, you're honest, you're ethical, you work smart, that your life will be blessed. And then you will have the ability to bless others' lives. And that's the phase that I'm in now. And I really enjoy blessing others' lives. So I hope that this has been enlightening, at least in some way, to some of you. I hope it gives you hope. Because if I can work up from $6 an hour as a runner to having disposable income to be able to buy precious metals, to create a hedge against inflation, to create a savings, in addition to stacking cash, I don't know what to say other than you can do it. You really can do it. I know you can. Because if I could, I really believe that you can as well. So, vertical stacker, how I got this way, you can do it too. Just work hard and work smart. And with a little bit of luck, you'll get there. Take care, folks.